Are you ready?
Oh, yeah!
From parts unknown and into your home, this is the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast. Now, here's your host, Groovy G.
Hello there, folks, and welcome to the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast. On this episode, we take a close-up look at a Restoned and Releathered UFC replica. That's coming your way right now.
You're watching the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast. For your official Groovy G Belt podcast merchandise, check out www.groovyGshop.com.
This style of UFC title belt made its debut around UFC 30. It was originally made by Joe Marshall, and was a single layer all gold belt with the weight classes on the side plates. By UFC 32, Jamar had been replaced as the UFC's belt maker, with Reggie Parks and Dave Millican taking over designing and making the belts. By UFC 48, all of the UFC belts were now triple layered, dual plated in gold and nickel, and the weight classes were gone on the side plates. Now, this replica that you see in front of you was based on this classic design. Made by Figures Inc., this is known as the version 3 UFC title, as it's the third edition of this replica, and it features triple stacked plates, so in parts, this bad boy is a whopping 12mm thick. Let's take a closer look at this belt, and it has been re-leathered by Reggie Parks, just like the real belts that were used on TV. Starting with the male snap boxes, we can see the Reggie Parks signature stamp, and his signature stamp tooling in the snap boxes. Moving over, we can see one of the side plates, and you can see how stacked these plates are. Now, this replica was also restoned by Richard Simpson of Simpson's Restoning, and I'll try and show you the back of the plate. Now, Richard has drilled completely through the plates and added pointed backed cubic zirconias, and that's what make the gems on this belt really shine. Here's the Reggie Parks signature starburst tooling around the border, and here's the main plate. Now, the details on this replica are unbelievable. This is, without doubt, the best replica belt out there, and on real leather, it is actually heavier than any real belt. Here are all those gems, and they too have all been restoned, and I'll try and get you a few angles to see just how stacked those plates are. Here's the other side plate, which is identical to the left-hand side. The logo plate, which has got no tooling around it, just like the real belts. Here are the female snap boxes and the tip. Now, because this is a replica belt, the tip is in two pieces. The tips on the real belts were actually one solid piece. And if I turn it over, we can see it's just one solid piece of backing leather covering up all of those bolts.
You're watching the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast. For your official Groovy G Belt podcast merchandise, check out www.groovyGshop.com.
Now, I mentioned before, the real UFC belts made by Reggie Parks and Dave Millican originally featured weight classes on the side plates. Now, this right here is some real artwork from Reggie Parks' personal archives of those weight class side plates. And another common question that belt collectors often have is, how close are replicas to real belts? Well, for all of you good people watching the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast, here is an actual negative used in making a real UFC title belt that was used inside the octagon. Now, if I place this negative on the belt, we can see that the negative fits almost perfectly over the replica, so they are almost the exact same size. There are, however, some slight differences in the artwork. Let's have a close look here at the cage links. But the biggest difference is a missing gemstone. So there we have it. That is a Releathered and Restoned UFC title belt, with the added bonus for all of you good people watching the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast, some real artwork used by Reggie Parks in making a real UFC title belt that was used inside the octagon. Now let's have a sneak peek at what's coming your way on the next Groovy G Championship Belt podcast.
On the next episode of the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast.
Up on the next episode, you have got to stay tuned, because coming up next is going to be me, J.Z. Flair, the reigning and defended Bojangles champion, the Cajun filet spinning belt. We're going to talk all about it, brother, so get ready, because this is the best belt collecting podcast on God's green earth.
That's right, folks. The Bojangles champion himself, J.Z. Flair, joins us on the next episode of the Groovy G Championship Belt podcast. In the meantime, make sure you don't miss a thing by subscribing to this YouTube channel, and you can join in the conversation on Twitter at Groovy G Belt Show or on Facebook. Until then, take care. It's bye for now.